Alrighty then, so as I said in our last video, we're going to be doing these two chaps. So I'm doing them at the same time because basically they're a little bit smaller than the others, so we might as well. So what I'm going to do first of all is the skin tone, and I will be using for that Nurgling Green, a little bit of Nurgling Green and a little bit of the White Scar, just to make it just a little bit paler, and we will go all over this fella. There we go, just like so. And as you can see, I'm not making any fuss about avoiding the lines there, what's going to be the headsets for the MP3 player. I'm just going to paint over it, and then when I come around to painting it, I can do that without running the risk of leaving any gap. There we are. You can see it's a little pale, I know that. It is on the greenish side though. It will be darkened up with washes when it's dried, and I'm ready to go on to the next step. So there's the flesh areas almost done. It's just his hands now. What I need to do is mix a little bit more of this colour, and quite simply just go over where I need to go over, which is in this case just his hands now. Just like so. Now for this next one I'm going to use a slightly different mix, and I'm just going to add a little bit of Rhinoxide in there as well, and a little bit more of the green. And I'm going to add that. So we want different shades of flesh tone, we don't want it all being the same. And if you look at when you see some of my final minis, you'll notice that most of the flesh tones are different. I just want to show that there's different rates of decay and decomposition with each of these zombies. I think I really should have done this so that the power cable was out of the way of the brush handle, but never mind. And there we have the flesh tones done for this model, or for these two models. Now, just a reminder, when it comes down to the paint colours I've used, it has been, where are we? Here we are. It has been Nurgling Green, White Scar, and into that mix as well, just for this fella, I've added a little bit of Rhinoxide. So that is your basic mix there. Now, what we're going to be using for other things, well, for his top here I'm going to use a little bit of the fang. Now we don't have much left on our wet palette here, unfortunately. This is going to be quite a thin mix of this colour. In fact, it's not as thin as I thought it was going to be. But as long as it covers. Here we go. And it's just a case of covering up the area that is clothing. There we are. Just like so. We don't need it's not the case that we don't need. We won't be going over any of the flesh on this because it's completely the wrong colour. We've already done the flesh anyway. If we do catch any of the skin tone, that's fine. We can always go back and touch up later on, like I've done there. It seems to be perfectly dry, so I'll wipe off my brush, dry it a little bit, and then go back into that green colour and just cover it up so you can't see what's going on. Okay, so this fella, what could we use for that? As I said, that colour we've just used is the Fang, which is this one. There are some of these colours I've already got on my palette, which I'm using just to try and use up. In fact, some of them have dried up a bit too much, so I'm just going to give these a couple of minutes to dry. Well, not a couple of minutes to dry, I'm just going to give these a couple of minutes while I go and clean off my wet palette, and then I'll come back and carry on. Will be a sec. Okay, I'm back. I've just washed out my palette and I'm going to carry on, and I'll do a little bit more on this one. Now with this fella I want to use something a little bit less colourful, so we're going to use a Troll Slayer orange. Okay, so for this, get a dollop on our wet palette. This is going to be his top. And as you can see, fairly watery consistency. We will need to come back and do a second coat of this. This is acting at the moment very like a wash, which is how we want it. I'm still using, as you can see, my Games Workshop brushes, even though I do have the whatchamacallit, my Painter Mega Brush set. I haven't opened that one as yet to play about with, as I've got these brushes that I'm using. I'm going to wait until I can't use these anymore, and then I'm going to start using that one. I don't want to waste these brushes. I've paid for them after all, and I have a few that haven't been used, so I may as well get my money's worth out of these GW ones before going over to the whatchamacallit, the Army Painter ones. At least I think I mentioned I had Army Painter brushes. I got the mega brush sets one day last week. Okay, so that's the orange colour done on his top. Okay, well, as I said, we'll come back to him a little bit later, but first what we want to do is the trousers of the other fella, and for that we're going to be using something a little more muted. We're going to use Bane Blade Brown. In fact, no we're not, I've changed my mind, because I can do that. I'm going to use Death World Forest. This is one you've probably not seen me use before. I only opened it a couple of days ago for doing the highlights of the fatties that we haven't seen painted up yet. But you're going to see this in use very soon. And again, we're going to apply this very well, not very, but quite diluted. It's not quite as thin. With this being a base paint, it's not quite as thin as the orange, which is a layer paint. But it still needs to be just a little bit diluted, just so we're not smothering any of the detail in these models. There we go. So that's that. And now for the other chap, we're going to be using a very palish, well, very muted colour, Dawnstone. He's got a very bright top, so let's make his shorts quite a muted colour. So we'll get some of the Dawnstone on our palette. And again, we are going almost a wash with this. Sometimes you get it okay, other times it seems to come out very watery. But if you have to do 2 coats to get it covered, it's always better than doing just 1 coat and smothering detail. That is always the worst thing to do when you're painting. I know a lot of people go straight from the tub. I used to do that myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that the paint is spread so that you aren't covering detail. What I'm going to do now is giving the top of this fella a second coat because it needs it. Trying to keep away from the trousers, from the shorts I've just done. You know, a third coat may be required for this. It all depends how this coat dries. But bear in mind, saying that, I like a rough effect to my zombies. And a clean perfect covering doesn't actually give that effect that I like terribly well. So we'll see how this dries now. You also see that there's some some stripes down the side of his shorts. They're going to be done as well. But what we need to do now is the stripe down the side of this fella's trousers. And for this I'm going to use the Dawnstone. In fact, I may actually go straight out of the bottle for this because it is too watery on the palette. So if we go straight out of the bottle, it might go a little better. So there we go. Well, you're not going to see much of this colour against the green, but it's just enough, or there will be just enough there to break up the green and tie in with that dark blue, or that bluey grey rather, of the fang. Right. You can also use the grey for his running shoes as well. I think I've added a bit too much water on my wet palette. Ah well. Never mind. As that, I just need to go into the Death World Forest and add a touch more at the bottom of this leg, like so. Oh god, I've just realised I've gone over the grey. I thought that was a actually thought that was some of the thingy coming through the undercoat. So let's just yep. Now that's that, and what I'm going to be using for the stripes on this fellow's shorts will be the orange from his top. But first of all, I need to I need to touch up some of the orange areas, and I need to touch up some of his skin areas. So I've got orange on his skin. Which is a little distracting, shall we say. So if we get the orange in there, and then I will come back and mix up some more of that Nurgling green and white for his skin. We use also the Nurgling green when we're doing these zombies, which isn't an issue. And we want some white as well. I'll just wash my brush out, and I'm going to have to get some more white, I think. Yeah. I think it's quite a pale green used, and that is enough. To cover that bit of orange. It's not strong enough to cover it, but again, when we get the main wash on, hopefully it will put it in shadow. So what do we have next to do? This fella is almost done, to be honest, but what we need to do first or next is a little bit of the Keelia green shade. And that will be for skin. Like so. Everywhere with the skin, you get some of this green wash. There we are. And then once that is done, I'm going to put that to one side for the time being, and then bring out our old faithful, when I can find it, Agrax Earthshade, and this will go all over the rest of him. And when we come back with this fella, we'll come along and highlight all the areas that we can see that needs highlighting. There we are. That's one completely finished and washed. Next, what we're going to be doing with this fella is this other fella rather, is the skin. So again, the Keelia green shade that we used on the skin from the other fella. And it's a complete skin coverage. Hopefully when it dries it's covered up that little bit where I've got the orange on this particular arm that I'm doing now. If not, then the highlights will probably cover it. Next, what we're going to be using is a colour for the orange. which is the other of the new paints I got, which you have seen before. The Death World Green, the Death World Forest you haven't seen before. But this particular one you have seen before. It's the Reichland Flesh shade. That's what we're going to be using for the orange colour. Here we go. And just in case you're wondering, I am actually now using this orange and this Reichland Flesh shade as a test to see how it looks, so that when I come around to doing the prison outbreak, I know whether to use this for the prison uniforms. So that's the orange done, the flesh, the greenish coloured flesh, and now the one we're going to be using is another old favourite that I use quite often when I can find it, and that is the Drakenhof Nightshade, the very bluey grey colour, and that is going on the shorts. Like so. Oops, a little too much there, so what we do is we get some of it off and then just go back and soak it up with the brush, like so. It doesn't really matter if you get some of the darker colours on the flesh as well, because when all said and done they're zombies, so they're going to be a very strange coloured flesh anyway. There we go. Now, as you know, on that one I haven't done his trainers yet. I'm just thinking Abaddon Black for his trainers and his socks actually. So that's why I've not done anything. I'm just going straight from the pot with this and just a little on my brush, and it's almost a dry brush what I'm doing with this. But making sure that you get a lot of the colour on the model and exactly where you want it. And there will be black going on the base as well, like there has been on the others. You've seen me do the other models, and this one's going to be exactly the same kind of finish. But for now we have to wait and see what's going on. So until these dry we can't really do any more with these two models. So that being said, the flesh is dried on this one but the clothes haven't, and I don't want to be fiddling about too much, so that is going to have to be this for this video. So until next time, as always, and I'll just lift these up so you can see how we've got on with them. That's how they're looking now. They will improve before we finish. But as I say, until next time, as always, take care, God bless, and bye for now.